Greetings, travelers. I'm Josh.
And I'm Kahi.
And we're the Genshin
guys.
Welcome all. This podcast is for fans of Genshin Impact, the mobile game made by Hoyoverse, formerly known as MiHoYo. Here we talk about our opinions, experiences, and dreams about Genshin Impact. If you like our show, don't forget to subscribe on Apple Music, Spotify, or wherever you are listening. So, Kahi, how has your week in Genshin been? What have you been working on?
Currently farming for my Hu Tao. Definitely want to bring her up for her pyro reactions for the new element that's coming out. I definitely have some good characters for the other elements that I'm planning to interact with, but I don't have a good pyro team just yet, so farming for her and maybe some potential characters in the future.
Nice. So, you're talking about Dendro, right? Like you want to get ready for Dendro.
Oh yeah.
Nice. So yeah, actually I guess this won't actually have anything to do with Dendro because we don't know how it affects it yet, but I've actually been working on my cryo team on Shenhe and Chung Yoon and trying to get the most out of like doing cryo DPS. So yeah, that's like just a really fun comp that I want to try working on more. So I'm gonna try to farm it up a bit. That's what I've been working on.
Hey, do you have
cool,
Ayaka?
cool. Oh, I do have Ayaka, yeah.
Yep, I use her with Shenhe. Definitely they hit hard.
Yeah, it's hard hitting, right? But what I love about that comp with like Chung Yoon and Shenhe is like being able to turn any DPS into like physical DPS into like a cryo DPS.
And Shenhe, her abilities buff normal attacks too, right?
They buff cryo DPS. So like
Well, that and the normal attack damage.
oh, is that right? Oh,
Yep.
yeah. You're right.
If you hold the
Right.
ability.
Yes. Yeah, if you hold it, right. And the other one bursts it adds onto elemental damage. Is that what it was? What was it? What was
Yeah,
the other one?
she'll buff cryo in general, but
Uh-huh.
if you press her ability, she'll buff other elemental skill damage. But if you hold it,
That's what it is. Yeah.
she will buff normal attack damage.
Right, exactly. So I'm just trying to make my Shenhe stronger. She's like actually one of my favorite designs in Genshin. So so I want to get her stronger. So that's what I've been doing. So cool. That's our weeks in Genshin, and I'm sure we have much more to talk about as well this week because we will be talking about Kuki Shinobu and how she kind of fits into our games at the moment. But before we get to that, I do want to introduce what our topics are for today. First thing is we want to talk about Genshin news, official news only. We're not talking about leaks this episode. And for those of you that are caught up to the moment, there was recently posted a preview of Sumeru, the next area that's going to be released in Genshin, and where the home of the Dendro Archon. So Dendro is going to be added to the game as a normal reaction in combat finally, besides the Dendro slimes that we already have. And we're going to be able to interact with Dendro in different ways in the environment. And that's what the preview, it was a 3-minute video, was about. So if you haven't seen that already, I recommend you go and watch that before you listen to our discussion, because we are going to be talking about what was talked about in that video. So after the Genshin news, the Dendro discussion, we're going to talk about the state of Kuki Shinobu. We're going to talk about Kuki, how she fits into the game, and as well as how the community sees her fitting into the game right now, which leads us into our last topic of listening to the Genshin community. Should you listen to the Genshin community? When and how much should you listen to them? And we're going to talk a little bit about our opinions on that toward the end of the podcast. So, hope you guys are ready. It's going to be a good one. And let's get started. Man, we need a catchphrase or something. All right. So, all right. So then let's go ahead and head into our first topic of the day: Genshin news, official news, of course. So the last thing that we want to talk about was the Dendro reveal from the makers, from the people working on the elemental reactions on the game itself, and they talked about a couple different things today. So Kahi, you went ahead and wrote down the keywords, the things to look out for. So I would love if you would take the lead on this one and go ahead and explain just what they talked about and what they showed us in the video, and then we'll have a little talk about it.
Okay, so what I wanted to focus on is just straight up facts, what they said, what is true. rather than, oh, how you could use it or how you could potentially use it. Let's just start off with the facts and then speculate from there. So, some keywords to keep in mind. First one is catalysis, which is the acceleration of a reaction. I looked up that word and I thought, okay, that's like a speeding up of elemental reactions, potentially more damage or just faster overall. The next keyword is wisdom and life. So these three words kind of guide the design process of Dendro. Now, two actual reaction words that are going to come up is going to be bloom, which is synergy with hydro to make things grow, and catalyze. And they said it's completely original, which combines the energy, I guess, aspect of electro and how electro is meant to like, fuel things, I guess, or to energize things. So bloom and catalyze are things we should see pop up as a type of damage or reaction. They also mentioned burning, which was already in the game, but now it's going to be, of course, more prominent. We're going to see that a lot more. It's not a new system or keyword, it already existed. And the new design concept term, which is polymorphic transformation. And this is specifically for what they showed so far is for the monsters change in state based on elemental reactions. And that also changes what loot they can drop. I'm not too sure if this is for every monster, but they showed an example of hey, what loot will drop from a monster defeated with a certain element interacting with Dendro. So that's going to be interesting for targeting farmers or just trying to find out or to get more specific things from specific mobs. But it changes how people are going to be farming materials, I'm supposing.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting because, like you said there, um, it's gonna force people to use characters maybe they don't use as much. Maybe when they're farming, they don't think about it because they just pick whoever their strongest character is. Of course, there are specific enemies like you can't fight cryo slimes with a cryo user in most cases. So, with that, but besides that example, you can pretty much use whatever you want. And in this case, now you have to use a specific element to be able to defeat certain enemies. And like for example, if you need to fight an enemy that requires you to use a shield for some reason, but it also requires you to use pyro to make it drop something, then you're gonna have to like model your team around what kind of farming you want to do, and so that seems like a super interesting concept to me. What else sticks out to you here, Kahi, in terms of like the what it means for the future of Genshin?
I think the biggest takeaway was, well, for me, that polymorphic transformation, it's a system. This system is going to change the state of a monster. So a mob can evolve or just transform based on how we are interacting with it. It's kind of like introducing mechanics to each mob fight instead of just having this one mob do this one thing the entire time. Now, what's nice about this kind of system is that it adds a lot of extra variety to like very simple mobs that are out there. So, of course, they could add this on top of a boss, which makes the boss exponentially harder or like more interesting. But the fact that all of these mobs are going to get this much more interaction from us makes just running through the world fighting things a lot more interesting, a lot more engaging. So, that's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I always love when they give us like a reason to use different characters. Like, I love having a reason to level up characters other than my absolute strongest ones or other than the ones that are just good overall for the reason of maybe using a shield or maybe having to use a like I love that like so I know that this is a thing but like Zhong Li makes you like he has such a good shield that you end up not having to do a lot of the game's mechanics when it comes to dodging or taking hits from enemies directly and a lot of elemental attacks as well. But when they added the wolf creatures, the wolf ghosts or whatever they're called, um they make you bleed even through the shield, so you have to have a healer. And I think that that's such an interesting concept because it really makes you rethink your team um, in terms of like what do you have that can handle the enemies that you're facing. And I think that in a game like Genshin, where you have a lot of characters, I like that it kind of lets you have a reason to think more outside the characters that are just good for like generally overall everything, even in the open world. So that's pretty interesting to me. But yeah,
Kind of
I
forces
mean,
people to into a mechanic, thinking instead of just, oh, okay, make teams stronger, bigger numbers, and I can just defeat everything. They kind of have to
right?
do a little puzzle solving in the middle of it.
Yeah, which I think is great. I think it, as long as it's not too complicated, I think it keeps people on their toes enough to, and keeps the game fun enough, to make it last even longer. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
this only
I mean,
sounds
I enjoy it.
complicated because we haven't seen all of the actual interactions in combat. We haven't played with it. It only sounds complicated on paper. I'm sure if you wrote out all the interactions with all the other elements on paper, it might sound complicated just because of how many elements are out there currently, when the game launched especially. But compared to now, it seems very straightforward. But going forward, this is probably going to be easier than we think it is, and we're just kind of over speculating, perhaps. But it seems pretty simple so far. The only reactions we're going to be expecting to see, like front facing, is bloom and catalyze, bloom, catalyze. Everything else is just design and systematic words, but just words that they chose to brought up because of how they made it.
Yeah, which I think was interesting, like how they mentioned in that video, how like some of these elemental reactions are the way you would expect them to work, for example, in real life, like water and electricity. But then the other ones are kind of more based in the lore in game. And it's really interesting to see that that Genshin, like I remember like one of the loading screens says like Teyvat has its own laws or something like that, and I think it's pretty interesting how that works. So
We should probably be
uh
keeping an eye on those too, because as they add more stuff to the game, they're probably going to add more tidbits of how to interact with an element, or maybe more tool tips here and there, because it's coming. They're going to be telling us a little bit more about it in game too.
Oh, for sure. And I'm looking forward to it. And I'm also looking forward to seeing how Dendro interacts with the other elements because we still don't know everything yet.
Rock
So,
crushes Leaf.
oh, but in Pokemon, Leaf is super effective against Rock. So I don't know what to tell you there.
Oh, is that how it works?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was the other way around.
So so yeah, so I think that we have a lot to still look forward to in terms of Dendro, in terms of Sumeru, and also what kinds of characters that are going to come out, what kind of abilities they may have. They also showed in the little preview Dendro Traveler, and they showed Dendro Traveler using their elemental skill and like throwing out like three little seeds, like green seeds,
It
to
looks very
apply
clean.
Dendro to the enemy. Yeah, so it looks pretty cool. So we didn't get to know much more than that, other than just seeing it. They didn't even explain it. They didn't even say, "Hey, this is Dendro Traveler." They just like assumed you knew what you were looking at. So, um, I'm pretty excited to see like what his burst is, and like how what his passives are and like how he works. Because personally, I want to use Traveler more, but a lot of 4-star characters can actually do what the Traveler does in any element better. So, like, it's kind of hard to justify using Traveler sometimes, but I try to use him when I'm playing the story missions because it's fun to play the story missions and be the characters that are in the story at the moment. But I really want a reason to like I want Traveler to be fun to play. So, hopefully here's to hoping to that.
I think they
So,
showed his burst already, because they showed
oh,
the
they
skill
did?
and the burst. Yeah, the burst was like he summoned that really big plant right next to him.
Hmm.
It didn't look like a bloom reaction, because their bloom reaction showed like a little plant sprouting next to him, but the plant that we saw when the traveler was on the screen was a lot bigger. So I'm thinking that's the ult or the burst.
Oh, okay, okay. So hopefully we find out more about what that does and uh like how it affects the enemies as we get more information. But definitely looking forward to always a new traveler. It's like basically a free 5-star, right, for those elements. So that's pretty interesting.
Can't wait for
Um,
Pyro. That's gonna be great.
I'm so excited for Pyro, and I'm actually kind of excited for Hydro because they're doing some really interesting stuff with Hydro, but also Cryo. Okay, so all of them. Yeah, I'm just excited to
Eventually,
to
we'll
be
see
able
them
to.
all.
I would love for there to be some sort of mechanic where you can eventually switch between them mid-fight, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Okay, so with that being said, let's move on. I think that is the biggest news. in the news section. We talked about that Dendro, but we also I want to mention something that came out today actually, which is the information for the upcoming event with Kazuha and his 4-star sword that we are getting in the game. So Kahi, I'm sure you saw that, right? I think
Oh, I
we
love it.
talked about it, right? It's a really good effect for a sword,
It's
really strong.
strong.
So I'm excited to see. Um, for those of you guys that have not seen it yet, hold on, I'm pulling it up right now. Let me see here. So, we have the Cursed Blade. It is a sword, and it has a level 90 attack at 41%, base attack of 510. And the effect is when a normal charged or plunging attack hits an opponent, it will whip up a hewing gale, dealing AoE damage equal to 180% of attack and increasing attack by 15% for 8 seconds. And this effect can be triggered once every 8 seconds. So it can have 100% uptime if you do it right, which is very, very good in any situation. So, I'm really excited to get my hands on this sword. It even just looks super cool. I remember last podcast you were saying it looks super cool. So definitely agree with that. Would you have any thoughts about this sword specifically, Kahi?
When I look at numbers that are blue, I know those are gonna get so much bigger. Especially because this says refinement level 1. AoE damage equal to 180% at refinement level 1. So that could go all the way up to what?
Uh
300? What? Maybe? But that number is gonna go way high at like max rank. Because if this is the one we craft, like the other event swords, that's gonna be huge.
yeah, the event swords are pretty good. Like in the past too, the ones that give you, festering desire, and the other one, the other things that they give you, that they get you to refinement 5 by the end of the event, and you just have like a really strong 4-star weapon, which is basically a 5-star weapon. So yeah, you're right. I totally forgot to mention that. Like refinement rank 1 is 180% damage, 180% of attack, AoE damage, and increasing attack by 15%. And 15% is also blue for refinement rank 1. So who knows how much stronger that could get. So
And it's an attack percent sword. So you're getting
I know,
attack
right?
boosted. Imagine if you just wanted to go all attack and like just you don't want to worry about crit percentage or anything. Base level, all your basic attacks is already going to be that much stronger. So if you already have like, you could even just fully devote your artifacts to just crit, and now you have everything balanced out again. So this is just
Yeah.
incredibly strong. Even if you decide to get one of them and just skip the event, this is still really powerful.
Yeah, it's super nice to see when they give you like a guaranteed good item or character in this game. So, yeah, we'll see how it affects our teams, et cetera, et cetera. I'm sure it would be good on Kazuha, but it looks like it'd be good on a lot of characters. So
By
we
the way,
will
since
see.
you were talking about that Festering Desire sword, that's from the Dragon Spine, right? The first time we went up there.
Yes, yes.
That actually matches Kuki perfectly because of the not only the aesthetic, I mean it's like purple lightning color, and it's kind of like
Right,
dark metal, but it
right.
boosts her burst and her skill damage, which is exactly kind of what you're trying to boost for Kuki. So, but the only thing is I have
It,
low refinement, so it's not as powerful as the other options.
it increases your burst damage. It only increases skill damage and skill crit.
Um, hold on, let me see.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. So it's I have it at refinement rank 5. Energy recharge is 45%, and it
Skill
increases
damage.
elemental
Oh,
skill
skill
damage
crit.
by
That's what I was
32
looking.
and skill crit. Yeah, so that's why it's good
But
for
it's
Albedo because his skill
yeah.
can crit. I don't know if Kuki's skill elemental skill can crit, so
Hmm.
that would be important to know.
Yeah. Recharge is good on
Yeah,
her though. It matches.
yeah. Oh yeah, recharge is always good, especially on her because that's yeah that's what she does, right? She can get damage and generate particles with her ultimate. So cool. But actually, we're gonna talk about Kuki in a second, so we'll get to that. But yeah, so this sword is coming out in the event, so make sure to not end up like Kahi with the Festering Desire, and make sure to do the event so you can get all 5 refinement stacks, or else you cannot anymore in the future. So,
I
um,
should have. I so should have.
yeah, so it's really good. And we'll see how good this sword's going to be. So in that case, let's move on to our from the let's move on from the news to the state of Kuki Shinobu discussion. So we've talked about a lot about Kuki in the past week, and we want to kind of share with you guys our thoughts and opinions on like how we've played her, where she fits in, our opinions, and then we're going to talk a little bit about like how the community has reacted, like what we've seen in the community so far, content creators talking about Kuki. And yeah, so let's get started. So I'll let you lead here, Kahi. So what do you think as a character? What are her best traits? Let's start with that.
So, a few of her best traits. First, she is a healer and is also electro. So, if your team needed that element and needed a healer, she is that solution. Her skill is AoE, so you don't have to aim it. You don't have to worry about missing. You can just activate it and just stand still. It's if you think of it, it's kind of like Zhongli because you hold that E and you have a pulse going on in the bottom. You have a shield. This one you get healed and there's a pulse going out in AoE. So that's her trait is just being very well rounded. She's an all in one. She is not intended to be overpowered in one particular area or ability. It's because she's meant to kind of fill the gaps and balance out the rest of your team. I mean, her whole character is like the jack of all trades because she can do pretty much anything. I mean, she's smart, she's strong, she's she has kind of bossy in the story, but it's because she knows how to run an organization, even though it's a gang. She knows her stuff. She's even been scouted by the Tenryo Commission, so she knows what she's doing. She has the smarts, she has the strengths, but Kuki, I think people wanted her to be overpowered in some way, but she was not meant to be. Her best traits is balance, introducing just things to fill the gaps in your team. Um, does she fit in any of your teams specifically? Does she fill that specific need in a certain team composition for you?
Yeah, I mean, so it's funny that you say, if you wanted an electro healer, like I did want an electro healer, thank you very much. I wanted a an electro healer to go with my Raiden comp, so it actually ended up working really well. Um, but I wanted to like what I really want to do with Kuki because she's so cool is like I don't want to use her as a healer. I want to use her as like something more interesting like which I want to go into kind of how I've seen some people using her, which is like using her to proc elemental reactions and using her skill and her ultimate in one rotation can get you like over 10 elemental reactions depending on how many constellations you have with her, but she's really good for using like for sparking electro on stuff. So I was trying her with a lot of different things, but ultimately I really liked her ability to heal and be electro to add for like for particle generation. So I'm not going to go into specifics about the team right now, but as far as like did she fit, like that was actually what I was looking for, what you said, like an electro healer. So I'm really glad that she was able to come out and fill that gap.
So there's certain uh builds that people wanted to try out for her. Like, can she be like a really powerful healer? And she can't really be like over healing, but she doesn't do like a lot of like strong burst healing. But since you were talking about like finding like ways to use her like differently, I thought this to you like a while ago, and I wanted to save it for the podcast. Um, I want you to share like what artifacts you're using
Okay.
and what weapon, and then I'll share what artifacts and weapon I'm using. So, how are you, building Kuki right now?
So I haven't been like super on top of it recently. Like I had a plan, but I haven't been able to exactly do it yet. I was using her. with. Hold on, let me find it real quick. Right. So I was using her with the Festering Desire, believe it or not. Um and just for mostly the energy recharge, and it makes her skill damage go up. Even though I wasn't specifically going for the damage, I also wanted the elemental mastery. I was switching it between just using that and Lion's Roar, just because it does more damage against opponents affected by Electro. But the artifacts I'm using, I was using her as a support. So I was using her with Tenacity of the Millilith, the 4-piece set. So that and for those of you that don't know, the 2-piece set gives increased HP by 20%, and the 4-piece set, when an elemental skill hits an opponent, the attack of all nearby party members is increased by 20%, and their shield strength is increased by 30% for 3 seconds. And this effect can be triggered once every 0.5 seconds, and it can be even triggered when the character who is using the artifact is not on the field. So every time her elemental skill pulses, the party gets a 20% increase of attack. So I was kind of using it that way. What about you?
All right, so I'll start off with my artifacts. So I told you you're not going to guess when we were talking a long time ago that you're not going to guess what artifacts I'm using. I am using
Right.
the Pale Flame set. Do you know the Pale
Oh,
Flame set?
yeah, the physical damage one.
It's from the same domain that you get the Mylith set. Here's the thing.
Oh,
2-piece, physical damage increased by 25. So her normal attacks are not that strong. This is an immediate boost to that. Now, when I use Kuki's skill, because it already sacrifices 30% of her health, I'm always paranoid when my characters get low health, so I have to get them healed as soon as possible. So this set, when I use that skill, she's going to stay out until she's full, and then I'll switch over to another character, and I'm going to explain why in just a bit. The 4-piece set to Pale Flame is your attack is increased by 9% when your elemental skill hits an opponent. This stacks up to 2 times, can be triggered once every 0.3 seconds, and her pulses is way more than sufficient for that. But once 2 stacks are reached, basically when her attack hits twice in its normal sequence, the 2-piece set is increased by 100%. So she gets way more physical damage when her skill pulses twice. Now, I had this piece, a specific one. I think, what's your artifact? Is it? I have her circlet. Her helmet is actually a healing bonus Pale Flame helmet, which means that it's also going to give her healing ability for her skill. It gives her more healing, which means it only takes her 3 ticks of her ability to get her back up to full health, which means there's 4 more ticks for everyone else I use to have that elemental reaction. So if I'm going to let her stay on the field long enough, then that means I'm going to use her skill, keep her on the field until she's full. Now, what am I going to do in that meantime? So now that she's out, she has to be doing some pretty decent damage. That's why I like her as a physical DPS. She does a heck of a lot of damage when she uses her charge attack, because it doesn't actually consume as much stamina as everyone else. So she's out on the field, use her skill. She sacrifices 30% health, but she gains that back in 3 of her skill ticks. If she's out on the field and she has her burst ready, you use the skill first, and then you use the burst, which means you're stuck in that animation for just a little bit of time. That fraction of a second means that you use your skill, use her ult. She's already healing as she's casting her ult, which means you're doing a lot of damage and a lot of physical damage while she's in an animation. And then you just do 2 charge attacks. She's already full health. You switch to the other characters. They're already doing their thing as well. Now, this is where it gets really good. So I've had the 5-star sword Skyward Blade, but I have never put it on a single character, because the Skyward Blade, its effect, you gain movement speed and attack speed and yeah, but after you use your elemental burst. None of the other characters that I have that use swords, I'm using after they use their elemental burst. You're kind of priming them to lead up to their elemental burst. Like, the only other sword users that I'm using is Ayaka and Kazuha Everyone else is pole arm or catalyst. So I don't really have a person to use this 5-star sword. Kuki is using this sword because main substat energy recharge, which is like 55% on this sword. So I'm gonna be having her skill all the time. I'm gonna be having her burst all the time. It boosts her attack speed. It boosts her charge and her attack while she's out, which is also getting buffed by the Pale Flame set. So I'm doing like almost like 10k a charge hit for like a pseudo healer. This is a pretty good build. I kind of settled on this build. I was genuinely shocked by how well this thing works. So what do
Well,
you
I'm
think?
curious. What is the rest of your team around that?
So the team that I use her with is first of all Shenhe, which we just talked about earlier. She boosts normal attack damage when you hold her skill. I also have Kazuha. So what I do is I gather. I can use either Kazuha or Shenhe first. You use Shenhe, hold her attack, and she kind of jumps back. You use Kazuha and his hold skill, gather everyone to that same center, which means they're all going to be near you. You get Kuki out, use her skill, she hits everyone, and then you use her burst, which also hits everyone. And then you do a couple of, normal attacks or charge attacks, whichever one you want, until 3 ticks go by, switch back to your other characters. And then Ayaka is like the finisher. If I time it,
It's Shanha and who else?
so Shenhe,
Uh-huh.
Kazuha,
Uh-huh.
Ayaka, and
Hmm.
Kuki. So the the interweaving of their skills is Shenhe. You have the buff, you have Kazuha pulling everyone, put them in one spot so that Kuki's ability can hit everyone, her burst can hit everyone. Ayaka will gain the superconduct from the cryo and the electro, and then it's just a beautiful just weaving of animation and attack, animation, attack, skill burst. And you can, if I get the rotation down pretty much like on the spot, if I like throw in Ayaka's skill every now and then, I'll have enough particles for Kuki's burst, so I can just keep that rotation going. And the only basic attacks I'm using is like Ayaka and Kuki, and like it's actually a really good like anti-mob team, but also has enough damage to like focus on one boss. Because if I save up enough for Ayaka's burst and you Kuki's burst at the same time, they're all like ticking back and forth like the cryo blades of Ayaka and then the electro blades of Kuki. They're all like hitting back and forth, back and forth. That's a lot of hits and a lot of reactions. So
Hmm.
I'm really surprised by how well this team is working out.
So wait, you have Ayaka, Shanha, Kazuha, and uh Kuki.
Right.
Ah, I see. Okay, okay, got it.
Mm-hmm.
So you do the okay, okay. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Like as far as like oh man, I'm really curious to see like the DPS testing for that, like and seeing like
I
how
can film.
fast you can kill some
I can
bosses.
send like a little recording later, and I'll just show you what the team's going to be doing.
Yeah, yeah, I'm curious. That sounds like a really fun team. I like I wanted to do a team like that too, like to make Kuki really strong, like to just make her like a main DPS basically,
But remember,
because
she's
that's
not
fun,
supposed to
right?
be the main event in your team. She's a very strong addition to this particular team. But a lot of people, what they're trying to do is over invest into just her. That's not the point. I mean, I'm kind of lucky with the 5-star sword, I'll admit. But the artifacts themselves is what really makes Cookie a big addition to a team because she can bring healing and she can still do good DPS if you don't focus on her elemental damage because she can proc those physical DPS trinkets or like artifacts very well.
Yeah, it's funny though, right? Because like, her elemental skill actually increases with her like the healing amount and the damage dealt increases by how much elemental mastery you have. So it's like the like because of her talent, her second to last talent, Hearts Repose, like her elemental skills abilities are boosted based on her elemental mastery. Healing amount will be increased by 75% of elemental mastery, and damage dealt is increased by 25% of elemental mastery. So, you know, the it's like they want you to you like give her elemental mastery, but obviously you don't have to do that. But yeah, it's interesting. It's like so, and I guess we can start kind of talking about the community and how they reacted to this.
Hmm.
But like a lot of people kind of tried to build her as like a traditional support, either as a healer or like an elemental damage support because of her burst being a damage based ability. And like they couldn't get good damage numbers, and so many people kind of wrote her off as like maybe another very powerless character compared to a lot of other characters, and that there are better characters that can do what she's supposed to do. But that you're bringing back the conversation to not focusing on her damage through her skill, but more in what she brings to the team with the healing and also the elemental reaction proccing from her skill and burst. Because, like I said earlier, like someone said like if you get her to Constellation 4 or 5 or something, she can do 12 elemental reactions in like one rotation, which is kind of insane. So,
That is a lot.
um, that's a lot in one
But you
rotation
have
is
to
a lot.
invest into a 4 star. I have Kuki already. I don't need most of her constellations. I'm okay with having Kuki because I will save up for the actual, 5 star characters that could be game breaking later on. But just having Kuki as a unit in a team to allow a reaction or to just add a healer or to just have maybe another sword user. Maybe you just like swords. But she's meant to be balanced. And if I just kept listening to the community and say, "Oh, she's a horrible character," I would have missed out on a really fun character. She's in like one of my favorite teams right now. I have my main team, but this is like my between my second and third, main like sub team. But she's genuinely a fun character because I found a cool way to use her. I wouldn't have done this if I said, "Oh well, this guy, this streamer says is not good," or I see the numbers this guy's using. Oh, because they keep focusing on just one thing, not just looking at big picture kind of stuff. So sometimes you might miss something really, really fun.
Yeah, and what's funny is like I really liked um there I think I sent you a video. There was a guy who was experimenting with like how much damage as like a DPS could he get her to do. And there's just like really fun team comp that I really like that you can basically replace anybody that uses a sword, claymore, um or a polearm, and you can use Chungyun to make their abilities have ice damage, crowd damage, and then you can use Shunha to boost the crowd damage, and then you can use Kazuha or another Anemo character to shred crowd resistance, and you can basically make them like a cryo DPS, just by making their attack speed better and their normal attack damage higher. And man, I can't remember the
I
guy's
saw
video that I
Cryo
sent.
Zhongli
Yeah,
because of
yeah.
that.
So
I saw
Cryo
that. Yeah.
Zhongli was where that originated. Like when Shunha came out, people were finding fun ways to use her and Chungyun together. And someone tried something similar with Yunjin, Bennett, and I think like maybe Xiangling, and trying to make Kuki like a fire DPS, like a pyro DPS. But the Cryo one just had better numbers, and it was less about like the cryo one's more about the reactions, but the pyro one is more about the reactions, but the cryo one was about just like doing ice DPS like with her like kunai and with her like normal attacks and stuff. So it's pretty cool. I really wanted to build that team. That's why I said I was working on Shunha and Chungyun because I want to be able to take any character in the future, and if I like their normal attack pattern, I want to be able to stick them on that team and just like, hey, now this person's my main DPS. Like it'd be really funny. So someone did that in like Cookie video. Oh, this guy, his name is um Hydro Sam, and I think he's the one that makes like the waifu over meta content. So it's pretty great. Like just basically what I liked
That's
about
a great
Genshin is
concept.
you can play the game how you want, right? Like you can choose like I really like this character. I like this character's design. I want to make them my DPS. Like you can basically do that in almost with almost any character. And it might not be optimal, but like at least you can do it. Like you can choose to be like, I want to use this person as the person I do most of my damage with, and you can typically do that. So other than the fact where like you have to switch based on elemental reactions and stuff, but yeah, it's really fun. I like these kind of discussions because they help us like find different ways. Like I definitely, you're right. I wouldn't have guessed that you used Pale Flame set on her. That's really funny. Like I always thought Pale Flame was a great set, but the only character I ever used it on was Eula. and Eula doesn't really get her doesn't proc the full passive all the time because of the way her elemental skill works. It has a really high cooldown. So I never got like the full effect most of the time, but like it is a really good set for physical damage. And I think it'll actually come back in the future more when more people use it. I think it's also good for Rosaria, but yeah. Anyway, definitely fun to see. Whatever the community says, right? So like that's actually what that will segue into our next topic, which is, when and how much should you listen to the Genshin Impact community? Like, so we talked about Kuki, right? And we talked about how we see her, and how we talked a little bit about how the community sees her. But when do you go and listen to the community and say, okay, you know what? She's not the character I want in my team, so I shouldn't build her because these people said I shouldn't build her. Like when do you do that, right? And I wanted to talk about that a little bit here. I don't think we need to go too in depth, but basically, when should you play what you want or what the community tells you to play? And of course, there are different takes on this. There are some people who say, of course, you should just play what you want to play. But sometimes what people want to play is the most optimal way. And I understand that because sometimes, in certain games, maybe I don't feel like I want to play the game, but I don't feel like spending too much time trying to figure out how to play the game. Maybe because I'm playing other games or I'm busy with other life stuff. So, I would rather just spend my time and effort efficiently on the game. So in that case, maybe I get Kuki. I don't really like, I'm not like, oh, I really want to play Kuki. I love her character so much. I get her and I think, is she a good character? Do I want to use her? Should I bother wasting my hard-earned resources of the little time that I have in this game? Should I use them on this character? When you look up on the internet what the community is saying about the character, I think that to me is a place where you could make the decision like, okay, yeah, like maybe she's not the kind of character I need right now for my team. It's not efficient for me to spend resources on her. I should rather spend it on characters that the community sees as like very flexible, like Bennett or Xingqiu or some, etc., etc. So, I mean, that's my main take on it. But what do you think, Kahi?
So when I was asking myself this question, I'm trying to figure out, okay, what are games that people play where there is the most optimal way to play, but is there a more fun way to do that? And so, you remember playing Super Smash Brothers?
Yeah.
Okay, in that game, your goal is just to knock the opponent off the ledge, which is fine. I mean, you'll find ways to do that. Someone will say, "Oh, you always have to use these movesets in this order, and always try to like hog the ledge over here." And you'll always have like these people who are just scientifically picking apart how you should be playing. But what if you're a person that likes to use, Falco's Reflect all the time? What if you're a kind of person who likes to use neutral arrows all the time? I mean, that's your playstyle. So, like, going into this, if you're asking yourself, how much should I listen to the Genshin community? Should you play how you want, or should you listen to what the community tells you to play? First of all, you got to figure out what is it you want to do in the game. Do you want just raw power and numbers? That's what you have to decide on. If you want to find awesome ways to defeat the enemies, then that's what you want to focus on. So I'm coming from the mindset of, I don't just want to defeat the enemies. I want to do it in a very flashy way. So I noticed that there's combo competitions. Like in a lot of games, like a lot of fighting games, they have competitions where you can perform a combo and you're judged based on how flashy it was. That I love watching those. I love watching Smash Bros. Combo contests because how they figure out each sequence of like hit this character, bounces over here, I'll place a little trip mine here, it bounces back, and I'll use the environment to like knock them up again, and then I'll do this one finishing move. It is so satisfying when you come up with a way to defeat your enemy, not just kill enemy as fast as possible. I mean, the fun that I have in the game is, how am I going to defeat these enemies knowing full well that I have more than enough power to defeat the enemies? So that is how I want to play. A lot of people, when they're getting into a new game, they don't know what to expect. They don't know what their characters can do, what their attacks look like. which is why the character previews are always like, oh, I want to use that ability. Oh, I want to attack like that. Oh, I want to use this character because they look cool. If you're a cosmetic player, go for cosmetics. If you are a kind of person that me who likes to do like these flashy moves and do like a little combo, then go for that. You have to decide first, what do you want to see from this game and what do you want to do in the game. The how can be later on, but you still have to have a clear goal what you want. If that's not as clear, then you're going to become sometimes overly influenced by these online community members because they found a way to play and you haven't, and you're like, well, let me try to mimic this, and then all you're doing now is just mimicking. So I know what I want to do. I know how I want to play. So that's going to guide me going forward. If they're giving me advice and that kind of appeals to my method of playing, I'll do that because I know when to not listen to them because I want to do this, so I'll do that, and we end up having the same amount of fun. But you gotta look at what you want to get first.
Right. So yeah, I mean, basically, you have to decide, and when do you list them? Like, basically, if you want to use a character, and the community says this character is not good for XYZ reason, you can ultimately make the decision. Do you like the way this character looks? Do you like the way their attacks look? Do you like their personality? Whatever it is that attracts you to that character, if you want to use them, you should and you can. So there's no reason to listen to the community if it goes against what you want to do, basically. So, yeah. I mean, so what do you think? Like, what is the most fun way to play for you in this game besides like the comboing? What's a fun team comp that you like that might not be meta per se, that might not be the most optimal, but you really enjoy this kind of team?
Okay, so in our opening episode, I talked about like what's your main team, what's my main team. Do you remember what my main team
Right.
was?
Yeah,
Hmm.
the people
You
that look
remember?
like they roll together.
Yep. Okay, so as the main guy, the main man, the CEO of Geo, Zhongli. I don't like the mechanics because if I just want to steamroll through this domain just for an artifact really quick, I'm on my 15-minute break. I don't have much time. I just want to steamroll through everything. I'll use Zhongli. Then I have Ning Wang. Ning Wang, good for range, interacts with everything. So if there's a faraway character that I can't hit from the ground, switch to Ning Wang and just fire away. Then I have Raiden Shogun, which means every other attack for the next 25 seconds has an extra electro slash out of nowhere. I absolutely love that because it works with any team member, any team comp. You're immediately getting a boost. It even boosts your elemental burst damage. Then we have Yaimiko. Yaimiko, of course, her skill casts 3 times. She has like auto attacking pillars. So if you haven't figured it out just yet, Zhongli summons a pillar that pulses the ground. It interacts with other geoconstructs nearby, which is Ning Wang. You summon a barricade. Not only are you blocking physical ranged attacks, you now have 2 geoconstructs doing a pulse. And those pulses trigger Raiden Shogun Slash, which are also getting stacked on top of Yaimiko's 3 Fox Pillars. I have summoned an army of auto-attacking turrets that have elemental reactions that give me extra shields on top of my Zhongli shield. I can stand still and guard those ley lines without moving.
So you're
That is
basically playing
hilarious.
you're basically playing Theater Mechanicus by yourself.
Exactly. That is exactly why I love that team. I stay still and watch everything fall before me. It's so
Nice.
satisfying.
Nice. Yeah. So for me, actually, it's funny because also Zhongli, like what I really like that's really fun that I just do sometimes, and it can be in a bunch of different ways, but typically I'll use like Zhongli with Geo Traveler and Albedo, and then I will pick any other character, it doesn't even matter, like Child or something, and I will just make a bunch of geo constructs that are pulsing all over the place and then just trap the enemies inside. And
Oh,
it's really
trapped. Oh,
funny,
I love it.
yeah,
That's a good
because
one.
I really like Geo Traveler and like a Geo Traveler's burst that makes like the waves that go across the ground and it kind of leaves like geo constructs. And then if you can also make like the meteorite pillar, like little rocks. Um, like you can make up to two of them. You can only have up to four geo constructs, I believe. Is it four or three? On the field at one time. So Zhongli's pillar is one of them, but as long as the other ones are close enough, Albedo's flower, Geo Traveler's Geo constructs, you can kind of just build up the geo damage. Not usually I'll use Ningguang as like the fourth character, just so I have not I always have geo constructs, but also because she boosts geo damage when you run through her little field as one of her constellations, I think. But like yeah, just finding fun ways to use geo constructs because it lets you kind of be really creative with how to push enemies around. And sometimes it's really funny when enemies can't attack you. Like I remember like using the pillar sometimes to stop enemies from coming toward me, and or using Ningguang's shield to like those robots that shoot missiles at you. Like it stops the missiles completely. Like that kind of stuff that is like has fun, really specific interactions. I really like messing with that. So yeah, that's what I think is fun. It's not always efficient, but it's just really funny to see happen in front of you, and you're just like, wow, this is great. Like, it feels so satisfying to like use this the way it was meant to be used. So yeah, so
You know how
that's like
Klee,
kind of what I like.
you know how Klee, like when she had her intro trailer, she's like literally walking around, walking, like RP walking, not just running. She's walking around, watching all of her moms explode around here. That's how I feel. I want that kind of feeling. Just walking around, just admiring the scenery, looking at the world, and everything exploding around me. That's fun. That is
Oh,
genuine happiness right there.
speaking of that, like one other fun thing I remember I used to do, I don't do as much anymore, but was like take Klee and make her bombs and then use Jean to push the bombs at people. That's really funny.
I saw that. I saw
Yeah.
that video. Oh my
You can
god, that's
technically do
hilarious.
that with what's her name too? Aloy and her like ice bombs. You can kind of do
Oh
that
yeah,
with her
they
too.
can attract, they can collect. Yeah.
Yeah. So like like actually I was thinking about this. Now that we are talking about the fun versus community thing, I was actually going to level Aloy. Like I was just gonna do it just because like she's a character nobody uses. But then I looked into more like why nobody uses her, and it really is that her kit is just not it just doesn't work sometimes. Like the way that she gets her abilities and the way that she gets her attack buff and it's kind of I don't know janky is like a way I can describe it. Like it doesn't always work the way you would expect it to work. And so until they change it, she might inversely not be fun to play because it doesn't work the way you expect it to work sometimes. So I don't know. Have you ever tried it? Have you ever tried playing Aloy?
Well, I tried her out. I moved around with her a lot. It was at a point where I was always trying to save up for the next character, so I didn't really want to invest the materials into her. So here's my review of Aloy, because this all boils down to like this is how I want to play. This is my teams. This is my resources. I want to put the resources where I want. Do you know of all the 4 stars? Do you know who's like the most powerful and most like hyped up 4-star character is? Do you know who that is?
Most powerful, most hyped up 4-star character?
Yeah, like you have to have this character in your team, and it's a 4-star, and everyone thinks, oh, this character should be 5-star. Do you know who that is?
I don't know, Bennett or Xingqiu.
Yeah, it's Bennett.
Yeah.
I have never leveled Bennett. I just,
Oh,
I don't like
yeah.
using him in a team. I mean, I know I need healers. I know I need pyro. It's just, do you realize in the story, every time he goes on an adventure, he gets in trouble, and we have to
Yeah.
fish him out. He's like the bigger Paimon. I know people who find Paimon like super annoying. Bennett always gets himself in trouble. He's not a good adventurer. Like if I'm trying to think of a team that should be together and is gonna be really good out there in the world, I'm not taking Bennett with me on my team, honestly. If I have all these other characters, I would pick them over Bennett. I know he's good, I understand, but it's like Zhongli and Raiden Shogun. I don't want to put Zhongli and Raiden Shogun on every team just to justify having them. I make one team with Zhongli, and he's not going to be in any other team because I need to use other people. So that's how I view the characters. I know I can have multiple people in multiple teams. If you start getting addicted to that one character, you're going to think you have to keep using that character all the time. And that is fine, but if you are buying all these other toys, so to speak, like all these other characters, and never use them, then you've invested time and money into characters that you found, I'm not going to play with them anymore. Like, everything that I've invested is because I still use them. I still use Zhao from time to time. I use Kuki, the potentially like weakest low tier 4-star character, but I found a lot of fun with this character. You have to really pick where you're going to spend these resources. Now, when I remember you saying you were going to spend resources on Aloy a while ago, but
Yeah.
when did you first have that goal? It was, or was it earlier this year?
Yeah, it was earlier this year. I just felt like
Oh man,
felt kind of bored, and I was like, like Aloy's technically a 5-star, but no one uses her. I never get to see her. Like her burst looks really cool. Like, I actually like her elemental skill. It looks really cool, but like, as a character, she's not, super efficient, I guess. Like even in the basic sense. And so I don't know. I felt kind of almost worried that like if I build her, maybe she'll be kind of useless. So I stopped. But I don't know. Maybe I'll just build it anyway. Because now that we're having this like fun
hmm
versus efficient conversation, like yeah, typically I've been trying to be efficient because I play a lot of other games besides Genshin. But now that recently, since we're doing the podcast, since like my wife has been playing a lot of Genshin as well, like maybe I'll just invest in Aloy because it's really fun. I want to do more co-op stuff with other people, and I think it'd be really funny to just like be an Aloy user. I might even just go into co-op matches randomly and just have a really strong Aloy and just use her and see how people react to
please
that.
do. Go right
Right?
ahead. I'm just gonna go.
Yeah.
If I ever do co-op, I'm gonna use Raiden Shogun. I just use my E and just watch everyone enjoy my slashes. I just give them my power. I'll bestow my godlike power and ability over all these like world
Oh
level
my
2
God.
characters. That'd be great.
Yeah, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I don't know. That could be like a new project I do, and like I could talk about it on the podcast, like being Aloy, being an Aloy main. Oh man.
If I was
So
an Aloy
anyway,
main, good thumbnail.
Aloy main. I'm an Aloy main in Genshin AMA.
I can imagine all the video thumbnails for that.
Right. All right. So yeah. So basically, do what you want to do, have fun. If you're at a loss for what to do, you don't know what to do, then you could always check the community, see what they're doing, see if it's something it seems like you want to do, and go for it. Take the advice or watch the video, copy the build, whatever it is that lets you have fun playing the game. I say go for it. We say go for it. So,
Right. Find
that's
your own
oh,
path. Forge your own
yeah.
destiny.
Yes, forge your own destiny. So that too. So, um, I mean that's basically what we just wanted to say to everybody today, and hopefully you enjoyed our conversation, and hopefully you come back for more, and hopefully you subscribe. And the other thing the last question I want to pose to you guys before we close out the show is, what is your fun character? If there's like a fun, like the most fun character you have playing in the game, who is it? Like, I want to know. I'm curious. Let us know in the comments in the form of a review. Is also good on Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts or whatever it is, wherever you're listening. Also, feel free to tweet us at Twitter on @GenshinGuysPod. And don't forget to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and wherever else you are listening. So that wraps up the show for today. Everybody, thank you so much. May all your wishes be granted and have a good one. See you next time.
Enjoy.